Have you ever wondered why she suddenly pulls away the moment you stop chasing her? Or why the moment you stop needing her, she can't stop thinking about you? Listen closely, because this is one truth they've never told you. Women don't fall for the men who crave them. They fall for the men who live entirely without them. And that reality hurts more than rejection ever could. Think about every time a woman has flirted, teased, or tested you. Those moments weren't about you needing her. They were about her trying to measure your value. Women are wired to notice power, confidence, and emotional independence more than anything else. It's not arrogance, it's biology, psychology, and social truth all wrapped into one. A man who can walk away without desperation becomes a puzzle she can't resist solving. Here's the brutal part. Most men fail because they mistake her attraction for validation. They confuse attention for affection and comfort for connection. You see, she doesn't respect a man who needs her validation to feel complete. She doesn't desire him. Instead, her mind and her heart are drawn to the man who has mastered himself first, the man whose joy doesn't depend on her, whose life has layers she can't easily reach. That's the man she fears losing, even if she won't admit it. Think of it like fire and oxygen. The man who needs her, he's the smoke. It floats, it disappears, it fades. But the man who lives without her, he's the flame, steady, untouchable, undeniable. She can't ignore the warmth and brilliance of a man who doesn't wait for her permission to be happy. Every subtle glance she gives, every lingering text she sends, it's all her way of trying to feel that heat, trying to connect with a presence that's untouchable. And the closer she gets, the more dangerous it feels to her, because she knows that flame isn't dependent on her at all. Now, I'm not saying this to be cruel. I'm saying it so you can finally see the truth behind the attraction that confuses men every single day. She doesn't want a man who worships her or follows her like a shadow. She wants a man who walks beside her, sometimes ahead, sometimes apart, but never behind. She wants the challenge of earning your attention without ever feeling entitled to it. Because deep down, she craves value, strength, and self-possession, qualities most men bury under the weight of their neediness. Ask yourself, when was the last time you felt completely fulfilled without her in your life? Not temporarily distracted, not numbed by routine, but genuinely fulfilled? If you can't answer that question with absolute certainty, then you're still living in the trap every man falls into, believing a woman can complete him. But here's the truth. She can't. No one can. The only man who becomes truly irresistible is the man who has already completed himself first. And that completion? It's not about money, looks, or status. It's about presence, emotional depth, and self-command. When you cultivate a life that doesn't pivot around her mood, her attention, or her affection, you step into a space she cannot help but notice. Every move, every choice, every boundary you set, suddenly, the ordinary becomes magnetic, and she starts to wonder quietly whether she's lost something she never really had. And for the first time, she feels the pull of fear. Fear that she might never have your attention on her terms again. That fear, that hesitation in her mind, is the first sign of real attraction. It's the moment she respects you without realizing it. And once a woman respects a man at that level, desire doesn't follow. It erupts. Now, I want you to think about this. What kind of presence are you creating in her mind right now? Are you a fire, steady and untouchable, or smoke, drifting and dependent? Here's something most men will never admit. Women are drawn to the energy of independence far more than to your words, your compliments, or even your charm. Think about it. Why do the most confident, self-contained men always capture attention, even if they're not actively seeking it? Because women sense that these men are not playing a game of need or approval. Their lives are rich, layered, and untouchable. And that untouchability, it's irresistible. When you constantly seek her approval, you become predictable, you become soft, and your energy becomes easy to manipulate. But when you stop seeking her attention, when your happiness no longer hinges on her reaction, something changes in her mind. She begins to notice gaps she never expected. She begins to see a man who doesn't exist for her whims, a man whose emotional gravity is his own. That's the magnetic core that she unconsciously chases. And make no mistake, her attraction isn't rational. It's biological, primal, and unavoidable. This is where most men fail catastrophically. They think that attraction comes from effort, texting more, being more available, bending to every emotional wave she sends. But real attraction, it comes from absence, from mystery, from a life that doesn't pause for anyone, not even her. When you build boundaries, when you cultivate a life that thrives without her validation, she begins to experience what psychologists call reactance. The very thing she can't have suddenly becomes the thing she wants most. And it's not about manipulation, it's about truth. She is wired to desire what she can't control, what she cannot own, what refuses to exist solely for her. Imagine this. She texts, she flirts, she tests. You don't respond immediately, you don't grovel, you don't chase, you live fully, unapologetically. And then she starts thinking about you constantly, not because you tried to impress her, but because your life is bigger, fuller, and more captivating than her attention alone can contain. That is the paradox every man fears. Stop trying, and she begins wanting. Stop needing, and she starts chasing. And here's the next layer of truth. Women crave emotional stability more than drama. When you stop reacting to her every move, when you maintain calm, detachment, and self-possession, you become the center of her unspoken desire. Your silence, your composure, your refusal to be tossed by her moods, all of this amplifies your presence. She doesn't consciously realize why she is drawn in, but biologically, she feels it. Her mind starts creating a narrative where you are scarce, unavailable, yet irreplaceable. And that scarcity, that sense of you living independently, it triggers a deeper emotional pull than any compliment or romantic gesture ever could. Here's the harsh reality most men avoid. If you are constantly there, if you bend to her schedule, if your emotional state mirrors hers, you are invisible. You're one more man in a sea of noise. But the man who exists outside her control, who doesn't need her attention to feel complete, who lives on his own terms, that is the man she cannot stop thinking about. That is the man who becomes unforgettable. Ask yourself, are you living for her reaction, or are you living for your own power, your own joy, your own purpose? If you want to create desire that she cannot resist, the answer is not more effort, it's less dependence. Stop giving, stop waiting, stop needing, start living, start building a presence so strong that she feels your absence as sharply as your presence. Because that is the silent, invisible force that creates obsession in a woman. Not your chase, not your compliments, not your attention, but your life, fully owned, fully lived, fully untouchable. Let me tell you something most men never realize. Desire isn't created by attention. It's created by absence, tension, and respect. When a man lives fully for himself, he becomes a silent puzzle in a woman's mind. She starts noticing patterns, small habits, moments she never thought mattered. She notices how you don't crumble when she withdraws. She notices how your calm isn't fragile, how your boundaries aren't negotiable, and how your life doesn't revolve around her whims. And that is when desire begins to root itself deeply and uncontrollably. Here's the hidden truth. Women fear losing men who don't need them. And that fear is far more powerful than love. Love is fickle. Desire driven by fear of loss is relentless. The moment she realizes that you are emotionally independent, that your happiness doesn't hinge on her attention, she experiences a subtle panic she cannot name. She begins to test herself. Do I still matter to him? But it's no longer a question of control. It's a question of value. And that value isn't granted by words or gestures. It's proven through presence, composure, and untouchable self-possession. Most men make the fatal mistake of responding to her tests with desperation. They over-explain, over-apologize, over-try. That's the signal she unconsciously reads as weakness, dependency, and predictability. The truth is, she isn't drawn to effort. She's drawn to a man whose life she cannot dictate. Every time you allow her to see that your emotional gravity is self-contained, that your happiness is intact regardless of her behavior, you create a magnetic field she cannot resist. She begins thinking of you not as someone she can have at will, but as someone she must earn, understand, and even fear losing. Notice how the strongest attraction often emerges in tension, not comfort. When you are fully present in your own life, pursuing your ambitions, expanding your mind, protecting your energy, you create a gravitational pull that nothing else can match. She senses this. Even in moments of silence, she feels the invisible weight of your independence. She feels the thrill of unpredictability, the spark of challenge. And slowly, subtly, she begins to build an emotional tether that keeps her thinking about you long after you've left the room. But there's a delicate line. If you swing too far into detachment, she may walk away entirely. This isn't about coldness, it's about presence. It's about living a full, meaningful life and allowing her to be a part of it without being the center. The more she sees you thriving without her, the more she begins to notice the subtle truths she can't ignore. Your strength, your vision, your resilience. Those qualities trigger deep respect, and respect transforms into desire faster than flattery ever could. Here's what most men never see. She doesn't consciously understand why she feels drawn. Attraction at this level is biological and emotional, not logical. Her mind begins to construct stories about you. She imagines your world. She wonders if she is missing something. She fears losing the subtle connection she doesn't even know she has. And that fear, that tension, that fascination, it's all created by one simple fact. You don't need her to feel complete. Ask yourself right now, do you exist as a man who is complete on your own? Or do you chase validation, attention, and affection from women to feel alive? The answer to that question will determine whether she's thinking about you or whether she's thinking of the next man who refuses to need her. And here's the kicker. Once she feels the pull of fear, respect, and fascination, she doesn't just want you, she fears losing you. And that fear is infinitely more powerful than any affection she has ever shown. Now, let's get brutally real. Understanding the psychology is one thing, but embodying it, that's where most men fail. If you want a woman to truly desire you, to feel that magnetic pull, you need to become the man she cannot predict, cannot control, and cannot replace. And it starts with one undeniable truth. Your life is your own. Nothing, not her attention, not her affection, not her validation, can define your happiness. Until you own that, you remain invisible to her deepest desire. Start with your presence. When you speak, when you move, when you make decisions, do it with clarity and confidence. Every choice you make should reflect your independence. Stop apologizing for living your life. Stop bending to emotional tides that are not yours. She notices. Every subtle gesture, every composed reaction, every quiet strength, these are signals she reads subconsciously. They tell her, this man is not dependent, he cannot be tamed, he cannot be broken, and that is irresistible. Next, create boundaries. This is not about being cold or distant. It's about respect, for yourself and for her. Don't answer every call. Don't drop everything for every whim. When she senses your boundaries are firm, her respect grows, and with respect comes desire. Women don't chase men who are endlessly available. They chase men who live on their own terms, men whose lives have weight and gravity that she cannot pull or push. Boundaries create scarcity, and scarcity creates fascination. Then, cultivate your own world. Pursue your ambitions relentlessly. Strengthen your mind, body, and emotional resilience. Engage in activities that make you fulfilled, energized, and untouchable. The moment you stop living solely for her attention and start living fully for yourself, she notices. She senses it. And without consciously realizing why, she begins to compare her life to yours, wondering if she is missing out. That subtle awareness triggers the psychological pull that no amount of flattery or affection could ever replicate. Silence and restraint are your allies. Never feel compelled to explain yourself constantly. Let your actions speak louder than your words. The man who can smile, move calmly, and maintain his composure even when she tests, teases, or pulls away is the man who becomes unforgettable. She will notice the contrast between your stability and the instability of others, and in that contrast, desire is born. Lastly, embrace absence. You don't need to be distant, but you must be untouchable. Be present when it matters, yet never make your presence dependent on her approval. When she feels your absence, when she notices that your world goes on without her, she begins to feel the subtle panic of potential loss, and that panic, mixed with respect and fascination, is a force that fuels obsession. She begins to think of you in ways she cannot control, cannot predict, and cannot resist. This is the equation every man must solve. Independence plus presence plus boundaries plus pursuit of self equals magnetic attraction. It's not magic, it's not manipulation. It's pure psychology combined with self-mastery. Women are drawn to men who do not need them because those men reflect the ultimate truth. Fulfillment cannot be given, it must be lived. And when you live that truth fully, she feels it, even if she doesn't consciously understand why. Ask yourself this: are you living a life that commands respect, ignites fascination, and creates subtle fear of loss? Or are you still living for attention, validation, and the comfort of being needed? The answer will define not just her attraction, but the respect and obsession she feels toward you. Now, let's confront the truth that most men never face. Women do not love the men who need them. They crave the men who don't. And the difference is subtle, almost invisible, yet devastatingly powerful. A man who is complete on his own becomes a force of nature in her mind. She doesn't just notice him. She can't stop thinking about him. Every glance, every word, every silent moment becomes a thread that tethers her thoughts, pulling her closer whether she wants to admit it or not. The reality is harsh, but liberating. If you want to ignite real desire, you cannot chase, plead, or overinvest in attention. You cannot revolve your life around her moods, your happiness around her presence, or your validation around her approval. The man who achieves this is untouchable because he has already mastered himself. His life is rich, layered, and magnetic. And that, my friend, is the invisible force that women are drawn to, a combination of respect, fascination, and subtle fear of loss that no words can fabricate. Think about all the men she's met who tried too hard, who over-explained, who bent themselves into someone they're not, all for attention. None of them left the imprint she cannot forget. None of them commanded respect or ignited the primal pull of obsession. But the man who is indifferent, who lives fully without her need, who respects himself first and above all, that man, she notices. She fears losing him. And fear, coupled with respect and fascination, creates a tension she cannot resist. Here's the final truth most men never grasp. Attraction is not built on pursuit, but on presence. It is not given through effort, but through self-mastery. When you cultivate your world, protect your energy, set boundaries, and pursue fulfillment relentlessly, you create an invisible gravity. She senses it, she reacts to it, and slowly, quietly, her mind begins to tether itself to yours. She may never admit it, she may try to resist it, but the pull is real, and it's unstoppable. So, here's the challenge. Ask yourself this right now. What kind of man are you? Are you the smoke, fading and dependent, or are you the flame, steady, untouchable, and magnetic? Are you living a life that she cannot control, or are you still giving away your power in search of attention? If you want her to feel that subtle fear of losing you, that magnetic pull of obsession, then start living fully, independently, and unapologetically. That is how desire is created. That is how respect is earned. That is how she will start thinking about you in ways she cannot resist. And now, I want you to do something for me. Take a moment, reflect on your life, and calculate this simple equation in your mind. Your independence times your boundaries divided by your emotional neediness. What number do you get? That number is a reflection of the magnetic presence you hold in her mind. Comment your answer below and tell me if you're ready to become the man she cannot forget. If this truth hit you, like this video, share it with a friend who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more insights into female psychology, dating dynamics, and self-mastery. Remember, desire is never created by need. It is created by presence. Be that man.